Greetings to my dear guests on this video. I wish you a pleasant viewing and look forward to your feedback in the comments. They said the new CEO was a visionary. What they didn't say, at least not out loud, was that his vision didn't include anyone over the age of 35. He arrived on a rainy Thursday morning, exactly 13 minutes late to the all-hands meeting we were all told to treat as historic. No introduction, no apology, just the click of polished Italian shoes down the hallway and the hushed tension of people trying not to stare. Marcus Ellery, our new leader, our fresh future, our disruption incarnate. Barely 40, though he dressed to look younger. Tech bro chic, sharp haircut, tighter suit, and an expression that said, "I've already made up my mind about you, and it's not flattering." He didn't shake hands, didn't smile at the reception staff, didn't ask a single question during the board chair's 10-minute preamble. Just stood there, arms crossed, scanning the room like he was looking at inventory, not people. By the time he reached the mic, he was grinning, but it didn't reach his eyes. "We're entering a new era," he began, "one that values speed, youth, and reinvention. I'm here to build a future-ready company, and that starts today." Every single person older than 35 visibly tensed. I sat in the second row near the window, arms crossed, my name badge crooked. My department lead, Margaret, leaned in and whispered, "This is going to be rough." She had no idea. By the end of that first day, Marcus had already visited 5 departments unannounced. He asked rapid-fire questions, but waved off the answers halfway through. Rearranged whiteboards without context. Reassigned 2 project leads because he didn't like the energy in the marketing suite. He skipped our translation team entirely. Not that I expected him to understand what we did, or care. We weren't flashy, we weren't loud. But we handled the company's most delicate client relationships, particularly our long-standing partnerships in the Gulf. I was the only fluent Arabic speaker in the building. I'd lived in the Emirates for 12 years, negotiated contracts with a prince once. I still have the embossed thank you letter from his legal counsel, but to Marcus, I was invisible. I watched him from behind the frosted glass of my office door. Arrogance rolled off him like cologne. He was the kind of man who didn't read the room. He decided what the room should be. I'd survived CEOs before, each more unstable than the last, but this one was different. He wasn't impulsive. He was calculated, and he was hunting for people to cut. At lunch, the break room was quieter than usual. A few brave souls tried to joke, low and careful. "Think he owns more mirrors than shirts?" joked Kieran from IT, sipping his 3rd espresso shot of the morning. "No way. The shirts are all the same brand. He probably has 30, Jen replied, smirking over her sandwich. "Marcus Ellery, king of monochrome. He moved Ravi from accounts to logistics, said it would stimulate cross-functional dynamics." "What does that even mean?" whispered Eliza. "He's trying to break things so he can rebuild them in his image," I muttered. They all turned to look at me. It wasn't often I spoke during lunch. I preferred to listen. But something about Marcus's arrival had my nerves buzzing like a live wire. Jen leaned across the table. "You think we're on his radar yet?" I shrugged. "Not yet, but give it time. He's not skipping any floors." They laughed nervously. The kind of laugh people use when the joke's too close to the truth. I stood to toss my empty yogurt cup in the bin, glancing once more down the hallway. Marcus's voice echoed from the conference room, too loud and too confident. He was already rearranging the future, and none of us had any idea what we'd lose before Monday arrived. By Monday, the reorganization meetings had begun. Quietly, strategically. They weren't listed on the official calendar. They didn't show up as invites. They simply happened. One by one, senior managers were called into conference room C, the one with no windows and bad air conditioning. And when they came out, their faces were pale, folders clutched tightly in hand. Some walked straight to their offices and closed the door. Others didn't come back at all. By Wednesday, 3 department heads were gone. Marjorie from procurement, 22 years at the company. Gone. Leonard from logistics, who could calculate inventory turnover in his sleep. Gone. Even Thomas from finance, whom we all assumed had blackmail material on someone to have lasted this long, walked out with a cardboard box and a tight smile that didn't fool anyone. The replacements arrived almost instantly. Fresh faces, shiny resumes, every one of them with the same chirpy, excited to be part of this next chapter energy. They carried leather-bound notebooks, talked too loudly, and introduced themselves by titles no one had heard before: Strategic Optimization Lead, Culture Acceleration Officer, Experience Alignment Manager. One of them, a man named Chase, I kid you not, walked into the wrong office 3 times on his first day. On the 4th, he asked if we could eliminate fax numbers from client contracts because they make us look old. I nearly choked on my tea. Meanwhile, I kept working. The Arabic deal was in its final stretch, a joint contract between 3 shipping firms based in Dubai, Doha, and Riyadh. I was coordinating between their legal teams, our internal compliance officers, and an entire thread of cultural protocols that, if mishandled, could kill the deal overnight. It wasn't just translation. It was diplomacy, but nobody asked me why I was doing it. No one even knew I was the one keeping it alive. Technically, it had been assigned to my manager, Gavin, a well-meaning man who knew enough not to interfere. He thought I was just helping. He didn't realize I was rewriting clauses in Arabic legalese, rebalancing negotiation terms, and scheduling Zoom calls at 3 a.m. to accommodate time zones across the Gulf. The partners liked me, trusted me. One of them, Sheikh Al-Rahman's senior counsel, once said I was the only voice in the West who listens with the East in mind. Gavin forwarded me updates, copied me on emails, and assumed I was doing some light translation. I didn't correct him. I didn't have time. The office, once filled with a kind of quiet camaraderie, now buzzed with suspicion. The new hires floated around like consultants in a failing startup, taking notes on whiteboards they didn't understand, asking questions like, "Do we have to keep paper backups?" Or, "Why do we still call these legacy markets?" One even questioned the layout of our internal file drive. "Shouldn't it be more gamified?" he asked, while sipping from a reusable straw shaped like a lightning bolt. I wish I was joking. The worst part wasn't their ignorance, it was their certainty. They dismissed our systems with a smile, called our methods vintage, laughed at process sheets that had carried us through international crises and industry shifts. Too manual, too slow, too paper-heavy. They didn't know we had survived 3 recessions, that we'd outlasted bigger competitors, that those manual processes had been built with intent, to protect, to ensure, to endure. But Marcus didn't care. He saw them, the young, the loud, the shiny, as the future. And the rest of us? We were the furniture, still here, for now. I stayed late that night, drafting a revised clause for a shipment liability agreement with our Qatari partner. It was delicate. A single mistranslation could suggest blame or insult. I reviewed every word 3 times. My light was the only one still on when I finally stood up. Through the glass, I saw Marcus's reflection in the darkened hallway. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at my office door, my nameplate, like he'd just realized it was still there. It was the kind of morning that felt heavy before the clock even hit 9. The office buzzed with an uneasy energy. Coats weren't taken off, coffee cups stayed clenched too tight, and no one said what we were all thinking. The calendar invite didn't have an agenda. Just 3 words. Company-wide SEO review. Marcus stood alone at the front of the auditorium. No slideshow, no co-presenters. Just him and that slick CEO-chosen spotlight that made his sharp blue suit gleam like armor. He didn't smile. "Let's be clear," he began, his voice cutting through the low hum of side conversations. "We're entering a performance-focused phase." He said performance the way some men say war. We'll be reviewing each department, structure, output, value. No one is exempt. This isn't about punishment, it's about alignment. Alignment, the corporate euphemism for slow-baked terminations. I crossed my legs slowly, pen untouched in my lap. Beside me, Gavin squirmed in his chair like someone who'd just realized he didn't know where the fire exits were. Marcus kept talking. "You'll be asked tough questions. We're stripping down what no longer serves the company's evolution. It's time to get leaner. Sharper." His eyes roamed the crowd like he expected applause. He got silence. As we filed out of the meeting room, whispers swirled around me. I was halfway to my desk when I felt his presence before I heard him. Nora, right? I turned slowly. Marcus. Standing too close, his tie askew in that calculated way that screamed casual dominance. He looked at me like he was sizing up a puzzle with one piece he couldn't quite place. Yes, I replied, calm but cautious. Remind me, what exactly is it you do here? Something in the way he asked it. It wasn't curiosity. It was accusation dressed in civility. I resisted the urge to tilt my head. I manage our strategic partnerships in the Gulf region, primarily the United Arab Emirates. I handle cross-border negotiations, renewals, and contract restructuring. A lot of it's conducted in Arabic, both written and spoken. He squinted slightly, like my words were just noise. So, translator. No, I said, more firmly now. I'm the liaison, the strategist. I don't just translate words. I manage expectations, prevent diplomatic missteps, and protect deals that require cultural and legal nuance. He gave a half smile, more of a twitch, really. The kind that said, I've already made my decision. Got it, he said, looking past me toward the break room, where half a dozen employees were pretending not to watch us. Appreciate the clarity. What he really meant was, I've noticed how people listen when you talk, and I don't like it. Because in that moment, I saw it. The crack in his composure. He'd assumed I was invisible, just another holdover from the old system. But people respected me, trusted me, and that made me a threat he hadn't accounted for. He turned without saying goodbye. The next morning, I got the email at 9:02 a.m. A simple calendar block. Meeting Marcus Ellery plus HR, Room B. No subject line, no explanation. I knew. I didn't bring my laptop, didn't wear my blazer, just walked in wearing the same black dress I wore the day my visa was approved in Abu Dhabi, the one that made me feel sharp and sovereign. Marcus was already seated, flanked by Serena from HR, who looked at me like she wished she were anywhere else. Nora, Marcus said with forced warmth. Thanks for coming in. We'll keep this brief. My chair was already pulled slightly away from the table. Not subtle. As you know, we're realigning resources, he continued, and your position is being eliminated as part of that effort. It's not a reflection of performance. It's just structural streamlining. Serena slid the envelope across the table. Standard exit package, 2-month severance, benefits for 6 weeks, and a positive reference upon request. I didn't touch it. Of course, Marcus added. We appreciate the work you've done. Transitioning legacy roles is never easy, but we're confident you'll land on your feet. He expected shock, maybe a trembling voice, a plea. Instead, I stood slowly, looked him dead in the eyes. You've got 3 Emirati partners flying in on Monday. He blinked. Yes, I'm aware. No, you're not, I said softly. They speak Arabic. They trust one person in this company. They don't sign anything unless I'm in the room. Marcus frowned, confusion flickering across his polished exterior. I picked up the envelope, tucked it neatly into my handbag. Good luck on Monday, I said. And then I walked out. Not because I was defeated, but because the man who thought I was dispensable had just thrown away the one person who understood the stakes. They'd find out soon enough. The first thing I did Saturday morning was vacuum the corners of my home office. There's something about cleaning that feels like reclaiming, like washing off the fingerprints of a world that forgot your worth. I opened the window, let the sunlight cut through the dust motes, and pulled every book from the shelf. Contracts and codes of ethics, cross-cultural negotiation theory, Gulf legal dictionaries, tools I'd used for years. None of it had left my side, even when the office turned its back. The folder from HR still sat untouched on my desk. I'd only opened it once, just enough to see that familiar sentence. This decision is final. Good. I didn't want to go back. Around noon, I received the first message. Tina. He's a fool. They won't last a week without you. Then another. Harish from compliance. Didn't say anything in the room, but I wanted you to know. I always respected how you handled the Emirati contracts. You were the only one who kept things from falling apart. And one more. Lena from legal. They told us not to talk about it. But I don't care. You're the reason we never got sued. We all know it. The silence from others stung more than I expected. People I'd helped cover deadlines for, coached through first contracts, sat with during coffee breaks when they felt overwhelmed. People who had once called me the company's safety net. Now, quiet. But I understood. Fear speaks loudest when it says nothing. By Sunday evening, my apartment was spotless, my plants watered, my desk organized, and my future wide open. I opened my laptop, opened a blank Word doc, resume, updated. It took less than 2 hours. Not because there wasn't much to say, but because I finally knew how to say it. For once, I wasn't softening the edges or shrinking my titles. I wrote it all. Strategic Partner Liaison, GCC Region, Fluent Arabic, closed and maintained $200 and plus in high-risk international contracts, crisis negotiator, cultural translator in the truest sense. I hit save and exhaled. I didn't feel defeated. I felt dangerous. The next morning, I was up at 6. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I dressed deliberately, navy blouse, minimal makeup, the kind of outfit that said, I'm here because I choose to be, not because I need to be saved. The consulting firm's office was sleek but understated. Glass walls, warm lighting, none of the soulless flash Marcus had loved. I was barely seated when Dara, the managing partner, entered the room and smiled like she meant it. I've read your file, she said, shaking my hand. Twice. You're not here to prove yourself. You're here to tell us what we need to do to deserve you. I stared for a second. Not from shock, but from relief. We talked for 45 minutes. Not just about the work I'd done, but how I thought. Why understanding culture wasn't an extra, but the deal breaker. How Arabic negotiation relies as much on silence as it does on words. How respect isn't in what you say. It's in how long you're willing to listen. By the end, she didn't even pretend to delay. We'd like to offer you the role of lead consultant for MENA Strategic Relations. The salary is 18% above what you were making before. Full autonomy, remote flexibility, and we won't insult your intelligence with check-ins. I didn't pause. I accept, I said, smiling for real this time. Without hesitation. As I left the building, my phone buzzed. It was an email from my old company. Subject line, urgent, assistance requested for Monday client meeting. I didn't even open it. They had made their choice. And now, so had I. Monday morning arrived, cloaked in tension. At my old office, they were preparing for the meeting like it was a royal visit. I heard later, through a flurry of texts and one guilty voicemail, that catering had been upgraded last minute, floral arrangements rushed in, and Marcus himself had swapped out the company's logo slide 3 times, trying to make it pop. What he didn't realize was that nothing about this meeting needed to pop. It needed to resonate. And for that, you needed fluency, not just in Arabic, but in the culture, the rhythm, the unspoken rules. And I was gone. The delegation from the Emirates arrived at exactly 9 a.m. 4 black sedans, tinted windows, 2 senior partners, and 1 stern-faced translator I knew well. Ahmed. He had once told me, over black coffee in Dubai, that Westerners often speak fast and say nothing. But me? He said I knew how to wait, how to listen. They walked into the glass conference room with calm, ceremonial grace, the kind of presence that fills a room without noise. Marcus met them at the door with his most polished grin. We are honored by your visit, he began, gesturing toward the head of the table like a maitre d' at a trendy restaurant. We're excited to continue building upon our global synergies. The translator didn't move. One of the partners, Hamad, the senior figure in the room, didn't sit either. Instead, he placed both palms gently on the back of a leather chair and asked in English, Where is Ms. Nora? The question sliced through the room like cold wind. Marcus blinked, caught off guard. Excuse me? Hamad repeated it, more firmly this time. Nora, the woman who handled our agreements. Where is she? Marcus chuckled awkwardly. Ah, yes, Nora. She's no longer with the company. We've realigned some roles as part of a broader strategic... But Hamad raised his hand, silencing him. No longer? He asked. No, but rest assured, we have a team fully prepared to continue. The other delegate spoke for the first time. She was the reason we trusted this partnership. She understood our concerns, our language, our contracts. Ahmed, the translator, didn't speak. He just watched Marcus with something between pity and disdain. Hamad looked directly at Marcus then. You removed her? There was a silence so heavy it pushed down on everyone's shoulders. We, evaluated structural efficiency. No, Hamad interrupted, shaking his head. You made a decision without understanding its weight. He turned toward the others, spoke in Arabic. I didn't need to be in the room to know what he was saying. I could hear it in the rhythm. Moments later, they stood. Ahmed gave Marcus a nod that wasn't quite a goodbye. There will be no contract. This meeting is over. And just like that, the room emptied. No shouts, no slamming doors, just silence and absence, the kind that says you made a mistake you can't undo. By 10:30 a.m., the company had lost the entire deal, $24 million, gone in under an hour. I received no official message, but my phone lit up all morning with fragments from former colleagues. Tina. They walked out. No signing. It's chaos. Gavin. He froze. Couldn't even explain what you did. They didn't stay for the lunch. Eliza. He actually tried to blame the language gap, like they couldn't see right through him. I sat at my new desk, overlooking a different skyline, sipping fresh coffee while finalizing a memo for a new MENA expansion project. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. But I did feel something settle in my chest. Not revenge, not triumph. Just truth. And they'd finally heard it. Even if it was too late, it started with whispers, quiet inquiries, subtle shifts in tone during routine calls. Then came the official emails. One of the company's partners in Bahrain sent a message with a subject line that said it all. Proposal withheld pending clarification. That was the polite version. What they really meant was, we heard what happened in the Emirates. By Wednesday, 2 other long-standing partners, one in Oman, one in Kuwait, had postponed scheduled renewals. Not rejected. Not renegotiated. Just frozen. That word was spreading now, behind closed doors, and within private networks of executives and diplomats. Nora is gone. The kind of gone that made people uneasy. Because the truth was, I hadn't just managed partnerships. I had been the bridge. The quiet assurance. The reason international clients, especially those in the Gulf, believed our company wasn't just another Western machine chasing numbers. And now? They didn't trust the voice on the other end of the call, because it wasn't mine. Inside my old company, chaos cracked the surface. I heard it all secondhand, from friends still hanging on by a thread, from emails forwarded accidentally, from LinkedIn updates posted too quickly to hide the desperation. The ripple effects were immediate. Projects were stalled, budgets were slashed, contracts evaporated like smoke. The emergency meetings began on Friday, multiple rounds in a single day, overlapping Zoom calls, and frantic Slack messages. They called them alignment sessions. I knew better. They were triage meetings. The new managers, so quick to critique our outdated systems, now stared at dashboards that made no sense to them. They tried translating client messages using automated software and got back phrases that made senior executives in Riyadh raise eyebrows. And still, no one admitted what was really happening. They had removed the one voice their clients trusted, and they had replaced her with a gap. At my new job, things couldn't have been more different. My new colleagues treated me like an expert, not a relic. I led a strategy session Thursday afternoon on cross-border compliance and was given the floor uninterrupted for nearly an hour. Afterward, Dara sent me a note. Exactly the clarity we needed. You're leading this. But just before midnight, my phone buzzed with a message that froze me in place. It was from an unknown number, but the tone was unmistakably familiar. Interesting to see you sitting quietly while your former partners walk away. Some might call that unprofessional. No greeting, no name, but I didn't need one. It was someone from the old regime. Maybe Marcus himself. Maybe one of his loyal remnants, desperate to pin the collapse on anyone but themselves. I stared at the screen for a long moment, because I hadn't said a word. I hadn't made a call. I hadn't posted a single sentence. I didn't have to. My silence had become louder than their entire operation, and what they still refused to understand was that the bridges they'd burned weren't just mine to mourn. They were theirs to rebuild. Alone, by Sunday evening, I'd reread the message 3 times. Unprofessional. That word again, used by men who don't know what professionalism is until they lose something they didn't understand to begin with. I didn't respond right away. I wasn't even sure I needed to. But something in me stirred. Not anger, not pride, strategy. So I made the call. The number I still had from an old executive chain, one I never deleted. It rang twice. Then Marcus answered. Nora! His voice caught, surprised, not pleased. Didn't expect to hear from you. No, I said calmly. I didn't expect a call. There was a pause, thick with what he wasn't saying. No apology. No, we made a mistake. Just the silence of someone hoping the damage might reverse itself. I thought perhaps we could discuss options for mutual cooperation, he said finally, like the words tasted sour. What kind of cooperation? I asked, though I already knew. Another pause. A few clients have expressed concern. There's been some unexpected turbulence with our MENA partnerships. I almost laughed. Turbulence, as if a contract imploding mid-flight was just light cabin pressure. I'd like to meet, he said quickly, in person. I said yes. Not because I owed him anything, but because I wanted to see how far he'd bend before he realized the ground was gone. We met at a downtown cafe, one of those neutral places chosen for plausible deniability. I arrived exactly on time. He was already there, looking thinner, paler. His suit didn't sit as confidently on him anymore. Thanks for coming, he said, gesturing toward the seat across from him. I sat. He dove in, no warm-up. We've had some temporary slowdowns, nothing serious, of course, but your familiarity with our international partners puts you in a unique position. He was spinning. Already. You mean the partners who walked after you removed me? I asked gently. His jaw tightened. Let's not dwell on the past. Interesting, I said. It seems your clients are. He didn't respond to that. Just leaned forward slightly. They trust you, I get that. And if you were willing to help us reestablish communication, maybe ease things back to a stable path, I'd be prepared to offer a consultancy arrangement. I tilted my head. As in, you want me to come back? Well, not formally, not publicly. We wouldn't reissue an employee status. It's more of an external role, quiet, discreet. So there it was. He wanted me to fix what he'd broken, but not loudly, not with credit, not with restoration. You don't want to acknowledge the mistake publicly, I said, not a question. He said nothing. I leaned back in my chair. Then I'll work as a consultant, but on my terms. His eyes narrowed. Which are? I choose the scope. I speak directly with clients. I decide when, where, and how the engagement ends. I set the rate, double what I made before. He swallowed hard. And, I added, you tell your team I'm not just the translator. I'm the reason they still have a seat at that table. His expression tightened. You drive a hard bargain. No, I said. I just understand value. You never did. He gave a small nod. Not agreement, just surrender. We'll draft something by Tuesday. Make it clean, I said, rising. I don't fix messes quietly anymore. And I left him there, at a cafe table covered in cold coffee and words he never learned how to use properly. By Thursday, the paperwork was finalized. On paper, I was a technical consultant. No job title, no formal employee badge, no Slack login. Just a discreet service contract and a non-disclosure agreement that Marcus insisted on, even though I'd said nothing publicly since the day I left. But what Marcus didn't understand, still, was that I didn't need their infrastructure to work. I was the infrastructure, and I had my own. I didn't go back to the office. I didn't attend their status meetings or answer to their shiny new operations alignment lead. I simply asked for one thing: access to their client communication logs and historical correspondence. Then I got to work. Not inside their systems. Outside. I powered on my personal laptop, opened a secure client database I'd built years ago, a clean, encrypted archive of all my direct contacts, notes, and linguistic preferences, and I sent a message, not through Ridgemont's servers, not with any company signature, just from me, to Hamad. I kept it brief, precise, the way he respected. Hamad, I wanted to personally acknowledge what happened last week. I was not given the opportunity to inform you myself. I am no longer with Ridgemont. I was dismissed under the pretext of realignment, without prior notice or knowledge of our work's impact. I am now leading strategic initiatives at a different firm. If you would still like to continue building on the trust we've developed, I am prepared to offer you a secure, experienced, and culturally fluent alternative for partnership. I do not speak for Ridgemont. I speak only for myself. Respectfully, Nora. I pressed send. And waited. It took less than 4 hours. Hamad replied with 3 words. Let us meet. The meeting was arranged quietly, not through press releases or business lounges, but in a small private boardroom at my new company. No catered trays, no slideshow decks, just 2 people who knew how much could be said in silence. He arrived alone. I greeted him with coffee, just the way he liked it. Dark, bitter, no sugar. I didn't believe them, he said, after the first sip. When they said you were gone. I didn't expect them to say anything honest, I replied. He gave a small smile. And this new place, what does it offer? Everything Ridgemont refused to understand, I said simply. No noise, no ego, just intelligence, transparency, and execution. He nodded once. We are prepared to move our business, he said. Quietly, cleanly. We will say it is a contract expiration, no further explanation, but I want you to lead it. I gave him a single nod in return. You'll never have to wonder who's behind the email again. By the end of the week, the agreement was signed. And just like that, Ridgemont lost another pillar, another $12 million contract, without a single red flag in their dashboard. No client complaint, no formal termination, just silence and absence. The kind that makes boardrooms feel suddenly too big, too hollow, too empty. They wouldn't know why until it was too late. Because I hadn't raised my voice. I'd simply shifted the conversation. And this time, I was speaking to someone who actually listened. Ridgemont's downfall didn't happen in a single day. It unfolded like slow rot. Quiet at first, then impossible to ignore. The first sign was the missed quarterly projection. Not catastrophic, but noticeable. Then came the vendor delays, followed by urgent restructuring emails and sudden budget freezes. By the end of the month, 3 departments had been gutted entirely, their teams given vague thank you messages and cardboard boxes. Then, Europe pulled back. 2 of Ridgemont's biggest clients in Berlin and Rotterdam suspended operations. Word had spread about the Arab contracts falling apart, about strategic gaps, about high-level instability that no executive tried to deny. The European clients didn't ask for explanations. They simply withdrew. That was the part no one in power anticipated. That trust doesn't need a press release to erode. Just silence. Marcus held an emergency meeting the second week of the quarter. He looked exhausted, hollow-eyed. The suit still sharp, but the man inside crumbling. 3 new hires had quit mid-week. His culture alignment director ghosted the company Slack. They were hemorrhaging relevance, and still, he thought the problem could be fixed. With me. The message came via Dara. Nora, she said carefully. Marcus reached out to me. Personally. I didn't reply at first. He wants a meeting, face to face. I smiled slightly. Of course he does. I agreed to go, not to save him, not to offer help, but to close the circle. When I arrived, the Ridgemont office felt smaller somehow. The energy was gone, desks half empty, posters faded, and the receptionist, a new one, barely out of college, looked up at me like I was a myth she'd heard about in whispered conversations. I was led to the same boardroom where Marcus had first told the company they needed agility. Now it smelled faintly of panic and cold coffee. He stood when I entered, still polished, still trying. Nora, he said, forcing a smile. Thanks for coming. I sat, didn't speak. I won't pretend this hasn't been a challenging quarter, he began. We're facing turbulence, some of which, I'll admit, is connected to decisions that, perhaps, weren't fully informed. I raised an eyebrow. Is that your version of an apology? He cleared his throat. What matters now is recovery, and your expertise, is critical to that process. I let the silence stretch before I answered. I know, I said calmly. I'm responsible for every client you've lost. His expression flickered. I don't think that's... No, I interrupted, voice level, steady. You should hear this. You fired me because you didn't understand my value. You ignored what I built, dismissed my relationships, and threw away the one cultural bridge holding your international presence together. I stood then, slowly, deliberately. I didn't come back to save you, Marcus. He looked at me, confused, waiting for some offer, some compromise. I leaned forward slightly, hands on the edge of the table. I came back so you could see who destroyed your kingdom. His face paled. I turned to leave, then paused. Next time, I added, know the value of what you're discarding, or at least learn to read the warning signs. I didn't wait for his reply, because kings who burn their bridges deserve to watch from the ashes. The elevator ride down was silent. No farewell glances, no polite small talk, no one to say goodbye, because there was no one left who mattered. I walked out of Ridgemont's doors for the last time, not with bitterness, not with regret, just with the calm finality of someone who had turned the last page. Behind me, the company was unraveling faster than the board could spin the story. Vendors unpaid, investors pulling out, internal emails leaked to industry contacts, and worst of all, the one thing no rebranding could fix, reputation, shattered. Ridgemont wasn't restructuring, it was sinking. And Marcus? He sat atop the wreckage, still clinging to buzzwords like driftwood. Disruption, recovery, optimization. Words that no longer had meaning. Words he'd used to tear down a structure he never understood how to build. I didn't think about him again, because my new life didn't have space for ghosts. At my new company, leaner, sharper, run with humility and purpose, we weren't losing clients. We were gaining them. 2 weeks after that final meeting, we hosted the Arab delegation again. But this time, it was in our boardroom. No lavish displays, no empty charm, just mutual respect and clean negotiation. The difference was simple, me. I stood at the center of that table, not as an assistant, not as a translator, but as a recognized strategist and partner. Every clause that passed between hands bore my fingerprints. Every nod of agreement carried the weight of a relationship I had nurtured, defended, and reawakened. We signed the contract on a cool Friday morning. 10 years. 3 markets. A new chapter. The final clause named me specifically. All coordination and cultural advisement to be overseen by Nora M., strategic liaison, approved by all parties. It wasn't just a signature. It was recognition. The kind Marcus had never been capable of giving. Back at Ridgemont, what was left of it, there were rumors of bankruptcy filings. Most of the team had jumped ship or been cut loose. The investors were nowhere to be found. And Marcus? Still there, still holding his title like a broken scepter, surrounded by echoes. And in those final empty rooms, he understood, finally. He hadn't lost the company because of the market. He lost it because he underestimated the one person he should have listened to. Not the loudest in the room, just the most important.